I turned 15 3 days ago. For most kids, a birthday is a day of celebration, of joy, of being surrounded by family who loves you. But for me, it was just another reminder of how much my life had fallen apart. 1 year ago, I had a complete family. A father, a mother, and a younger brother. Now, my father was gone. My mother had replaced him, and my little brother was being taken away from me. But on that day, something happened that changed everything. My grandmother threw me a surprise party. It was simple. Some of my school friends, a few relatives, and a homemade cake. But it was more than I expected. I had spent the past 2 months in a daze, feeling like I had been thrown away, like I wasn't wanted. Yet here, in my grandmother's home, surrounded by people who actually cared about me, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. I felt seen. And then my grandmother made an announcement that left me speechless. "I have something special for you," she said, holding up a document. The room quieted as everyone turned to look. "This penthouse apartment that I own? It belongs to you now." I blinked. "What?" She smiled warmly. "Well, technically, my lawyer will act as the trustee until you turn 18, but after that, it's yours. Your own place. Your own future." My heart pounded. An entire penthouse. My grandmother wasn't rich, but she had been smart with money all her life. She had bought this apartment years ago as an investment, a place to stay whenever she wanted to be closer to the city. And now, she was giving it to me? I could barely process it. After months of feeling abandoned, powerless, and unwanted, I suddenly had something of my own. Something no one could take away from me. Or so I thought. Because the very next day, my mother called, and everything fell apart. To understand why this gift was such a big deal, you have to understand how I ended up living with my grandmother in the first place. A year ago, my family was already cracking under the weight of my parents' failing marriage. My father was a workaholic, always buried in his job, rarely home. My mother, she had started to act different, more distant, more secretive. At the time, I thought she was just tired of being alone. Then one day, my father left. No fight, no screaming, just a quiet divorce that they finalized before I even knew about it. I remember that night clearly. My mother sat me down, her face blank, and said, "Your father moved out. We're getting a divorce." Just like that. I stared at her, waiting for more, some kind of explanation, some reassurance, but she didn't offer any. 2 days later, I got a single text from my dad. "Be good. Take care of your mom and brother." That was it. No goodbye, no visit, just silence. For months, my mother and I barely spoke about him. She acted like he had never existed. And then, 5 months later, she hit me with another bombshell. "I've been seeing someone new. His name is Robert. We're engaged." I barely had time to process it before she added, "We're moving in a few months." I felt like I had been punched in the chest. "Wait, what?" I stammered. "Already?" She sighed, like she was tired of dealing with me. "Honey, I know this is a lot, but Robert and I love each other. He got a great job offer, and we're moving out of state." My heart pounded. "And me? What about me?" She hesitated, and then she dropped the real bombshell. "Robert thinks it would be best if just your brother comes with us." The words ripped through. "Me? Just my brother?" I whispered. My mother nodded. "He's still young. Robert can raise him as his own." "And me?" My voice shook. "You're just going to leave me behind?" She gave me a weak smile. "I thought you'd prefer to stay with Grandma. You're 15 now. It's not like you need me as much." I needed her more than ever, but she had already made up her mind. After my mother dropped me off like an unwanted package at my grandmother's house, I told myself I was done with her. I was wrong. The night after my birthday, my phone rang. It was her. "Hey, sweetheart." Her voice was oddly cheerful. "I heard about your gift from Grandma. That's quite a surprise," I tensed. "Yeah, it was." There was a pause. Then, "I was talking to Robert and we had an idea. He thinks it would be wonderful if he adopted you." I froze. "Adopt me?" "Robert," before I could react, she added. "But there's just one small thing. We think it would make sense for the penthouse to be transferred to Robert's name. That way we can all live together." And just like that, I understood. This wasn't about family. This was about money. She didn't care about reuniting with me. She didn't care about what I wanted. She just wanted me to hand over the penthouse so Robert could use it. Something inside me snapped. "No." Her tone hardened. "Honey, don't be selfish. Robert has taken care of me when your father wouldn't. He's been through a lot. This is what's best for everyone." "For you," I corrected. "Not for me." I hung up. She called again. I didn't answer. Then she texted me, "I'm sorry if you feel abandoned, but after your father left, Robert was the only person who cared for me. He supports me emotionally and financially. If you love me, you'll do this." I stared at the message, my hands shaking. She had no shame. The next morning, she showed up at my grandmother's house. "I just want to talk," she said, but I didn't. She cried. She begged. She said she was just trying to do what was best for everyone. And for the first time, I saw her for who she really was. "You're not trying to make everyone happy," I said coldly. "You're trying to make yourself happy, and you expect everyone else to sacrifice for it." She froze. Then, without another word, she turned and walked out. Later that night, I saw that she had blocked me, and for the first time since she left me behind, I felt nothing. A week later, Robert was gone. No heartfelt goodbye. No promises to make things work. Just a cold message that my grandmother overheard from one of my mother's friends. Robert left. No penthouse, no money, nothing to stay for. As it turned out, there was never a new job. His entire plan had been to live off my mother's money, and when he realized the penthouse would never be his, he disappeared. My mother, who had abandoned me for him, now stood completely alone. I wish I could say I felt satisfied, that I felt some justice in knowing she got what she deserved. But as I sat there staring at the last message she ever sent me, all I felt was a deep, hollow sadness. She had traded her family for a dream, and now that dream had shattered. A month later, I received a text from an unknown number. "Can we meet? It's Mom." I didn't know what I was expecting, but I agreed. No matter what she had done, she was still my mother. When I arrived at the small cafe where we had arranged to meet, I barely recognized her. Her once well-groomed hair was now messy, dark circles lingered under her eyes, and the expensive designer outfits she used to wear were replaced with a simple sweater. She looked at me, hesitation flickering in her gaze. "Thank you for coming." I said nothing, just sat down and waited. She sighed, then finally spoke. "Robert is gone." I only nodded. "I know." She gave a bitter smile. "Of course you do. I'm sure your grandmother already told you." Silence hung between us. Then she looked at me, her expression filled with regret. "I made a lot of mistakes, didn't I?" I met her eyes. There was no anger anymore, no resentment, just the truth. "Yes." She swallowed hard. I just wanted a better life. When your father left, I felt like my entire world was crumbling. Then Robert came along and made me believe everything would be okay. I didn't want to lose my second chance. I gave a hollow laugh. And that second chance was worth throwing me away? She had no answer, and that silence told me everything I needed to know. The meeting ended without a hug, without a real apology. Just an emptiness between us, bigger than ever before. As I stood up to leave, she reached out and grabbed my hand. "Can you forgive me?" I looked at her for a long moment, and then I said, "I don't know, but I can't keep living my life just to make you happy." Then I walked away, leaving her sitting there in that cafe, alone, just like she had left me a year ago. After that day, I never spoke to my mother again, not because I hated her, but because I needed to protect myself. Things slowly started to get better. My father won custody of my little brother, and even though it wasn't easy, we started rebuilding our relationship. He wasn't perfect, but at least he was trying. My grandmother remained my guardian angel, supporting me when no one else would. She didn't have to, but she did, because she loved me unconditionally. And the penthouse? It was still mine. One day, when I turned 18, I would move in. Not because it was just an apartment, but because it represented freedom, a life I built for myself, free from the control of others. And as I looked ahead at my future, I no longer saw chaos and uncertainty. I saw hope, because for the first time, in over a year, I was finally free. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.